This is Mr. Calkins, and as you can see, I've created a PowerPoint for the Journey on the Rock Cycle Lab. The first page has the rock cycle that I'd like you to know. Notice that there are some vocab words there. For example, between metamorphic rocks and igneous rocks, you'll see melting, and if it crystallizes underground, you'll have the intrusive igneous rocks, and if it crystallizes above the ground, you'll have the extrusive igneous rocks. I'd like you to know those words. Another new word for some of you may be lithification, over between sediments and sedimentary rocks. You'll need to look that one up. You should know it by now. If not, you now have new vocab words. The other ones related to weathering, transportation, and deposition should make sense to you as well. If you haven't turned on the sound, you're not hearing any of this, obviously. Going to the next page, we will have the worksheet that you'll start with. If you're in first or second hour, I didn't hand this out today. Fifth or sixth hour I will, so that when it comes time for you to write where you began your adventure at, you'll be able to indicate which station. The page actually has 12 different spots that you'll have to go to, and you may be at some stations for longer than others, and you may repeat some of the stations. If you look at this lab station set up here, tells you which stations to go to for the various student numbers that you have. And the key to it is if your number is over 30, please just try to figure out which station has the least number of students so that you get a good start. There are more than enough dice at every station. Initially there may only be 5 people there, but for example the sedimentary rock station frequently gets multiple students at it, and you may need all of the dice for a short while at that station. It's color coded. You'll find the stations around the room, and when I set them up I'll do my best to go around the room from up front, around the side, down the back, and over to the rear sink. So if you're a high student number, you'll be back by the sink at the back corner of the room, and if you're a low student number, you'll be up by where the in and out boxes are to begin the lab. Roll the dice at your station means what it sounds like. You pick up a die. They're all the same. Indicate where you're beginning your adventure at based on where I just told you your student numbers go, and you'll indicate the first thing that happens, and it'll tell you on the dice which thing happens. So you just write it down. I eroded, I did this, I did that, I was melted. Write the short version of it. There are a lot more words around the die than you'll need, so just make sure you understand what happened and which station it said to go to next. It may be that you go right back to the same station, so you'll say, then I went to, and you'll write down, let's say, sedimentary rock again. You just keep repeating the process until the sheet is completed, but you'll notice that on the next page it tells you that you need to avoid extreme boredom by not staying at a station for more than 3 turns in a row. I've seen students get stuck at sedimentary rock 10 times in a row, which makes some sense because sedimentary rock is so common. It's 75% of the rock that covers the Earth's surface, which you need to know, and you just don't want to get stuck there forever. You'll be completing a project with this, so the challenge directions that are at the bottom to make a comic strip are just one way you may elect to do it. You could do a poem, a story, a video, a poster. If you do a video, you have to have a script and some images for me to grade from the video. They could be drawings, or you could use still shots from the video because sometimes they're extremely hard to grade online. I've had students have trouble sending them to me, everything. I don't discourage you from making one. Just understand that they can be very difficult to grade, and you don't want to get a bad grade because I can't view it or there's some other problem with the work. You'll have 2 class periods next week. Really it'll add up to more like 3 because there will be probably a chunk of Monday, all of Tuesday, perhaps not Wednesday because I'll be absent again, and then Thursday you'd finish them up and turn them in, and we'll see how it goes. And if you wanted to work in groups of 2, that's fine. You'll have to pick one or the other of the journeys that you make through the rock cycle. You could modify the journey a bit to do things a little bit more interestingly if you'd like. If you are going to work with 3 people, it's going to be because you do something really fantastic. And I don't know what that is yet, but I'll know it when we discuss it. The rubric 5th and 6th hours handed out today. Tomorrow you'll get it for your 1st and 2nd hour classes. And you'll see on the back of the rubric a list of Michigan rock names that you need to add to the steps of your project. And an example of that would be, let's say you started out as sandstone for one of your sedimentary rocks that you were at a particular station. If you then went to be a metamorphic rock from sandstone, the metamorphic version of sandstone on the list that I have is actually quartzite. Now, for some of those you'll have to look them up, and that's part of the fun of creating this project. For limestone, I can tell you that the metamorphic version of the sedimentary rock we know as limestone is marble. And you'll need to use a minimum of 6 rocks off this list, although there are 16 items here available to you. You only have to use 6 of them, and they have to make sense. And if you run into a rock that you'd like to use, like rock salt, where there is no metamorphic version of it, and the next station is metamorphic, you're going to have to do something quite creative to make that work. I would recommend that, for example, you perhaps don't use rock salt if you're headed from sedimentary to metamorphic, but rather you use limestone for the sedimentary, marble for the metamorphic, because that occurs in nature, or sandstone for the sedimentary one, and quartzite for the metamorphic one, because that occurs in nature as well. Shale turns into slate. You can see where we're going with this. You could easily have any of the igneous ones turn into sedimentary rocks, all or in part, by being weathered, and that would allow you to use the vocab down at the bottom, which is going to be the trick. I haven't done this project this way before. If you come across vocabulary on the list that I have here that you can't use in your project, you will have to add additional pieces to the project where you define the words and use them in a sentence, and that would suffice, or that would be acceptable for the project. For example, let's say you can't use extrusive in relationship to extrusive igneous rocks, or ones that cool above the ground. You'd have to indicate that an extrusive igneous rock is a rock that cools above the ground. An example of an extrusive igneous rock would be, let's say, some basalt that cooled on Hawaii above the ground surface, and that would do the trick. And you could use it in a sentence as you said that, and we'd be all set. The website that I have at the bottom of this page for more project details is a wonderful website. I found it last night. It has examples and pictures and just more information than I could imagine using. You may be able to find other sites. I just figured I'd give you one to get started with. And that's the end of the show.